Hey there, it's Carson from Wandering Dillos, and today we're going to talk about televisions. If you have an older RV like ours, it was probably built before these flat-paneled LCD televisions were popular. And so we're going to be looking at how do we take a modern television and retrofit it into our older rig. If you have an older rig like ours, it can be a little challenging trying to figure out how you get one of these modern flat panel televisions into the space, and that's what we're going to be looking at through the next couple episodes. Now, before we get started, I always like to answer a question from one of our subscribers. Today, Nicole writes, it's like, hey Carson, this is an RV channel, but it doesn't look like you're in an RV. What's up with that? Great question. Thanks for asking. Actually, our rig is in the shop, having some body work and some repairs done in preparation for our full-time gig that's coming up in a few months. So for right now, we're kind of operating out of our apartment, but soon we'll be getting back to the RV. So again, thanks for asking. Let's then get into the considerations behind choosing the particular television that we arrived at. As you can see here, we ended up with a Vizio 32-inch 1080p full high-definition television. But there are a lot of things that you need to consider when you're trying to decide what exactly you want and need to fit into your particular situation. One of the first considerations is going to be the size. We would all love to have the latest, 75-inch LCD high-definition television, but the reality is very few of our RVs are going to be able to accommodate something of that size. In our case, the existing television was probably around a 19-inch tube-type television, so we have a pretty small space to work with. Would love to go with a giant television. The reality is the biggest one that would really fit without getting in the way of the driver and just being able to get in and out of the coach was a 32-inch. So for us, a practical consideration, 32 inches was the right space. In your situation, you may be able to get away with something a little larger. My recommendation would be get the largest one that will fit in the space available that you can afford. Now, another consideration you'll need to make is the brand. Now, this is very much up to your budget, really. There's a lot of folks out there that are going to be making televisions of this size. I personally like to stick with a brand that I'm somewhat familiar with. Vizio is very popular, Samsung, there are plenty of other ones out there. At this point, it's really just a matter of finding one that has the features that you're looking for at a price that you can afford. Now in our case, we need to bridge a technology gap of about 15 years. So we need a television that has not only traditional coax cable inputs, but also is enabled with all of the smart television features so that we can live stream Netflix and Amazon Prime, Hulu, applications like that directly to the television. So you can see this one has a wide variety of applications built in. So if you like to watch Netflix, you don't need an additional box or any other hardware to do that. As long as your television can connect to Wi-Fi, you'll be able to enjoy all of those streaming options. Now let's bust into the box and take a closer look, because there are a few other considerations and things that you might want to take a closer look at when you're making your decision. Alright, out of the box it has all of the things that you would be expecting. Comes with some feet that you can put the television on. In our case, ours is going to be mounted on an articulated arm so that we can sort of adjust it in the front of the coach. We'll show you what that looks like later. Remote control, which includes all of the buttons for the Hulus and the Netflix built right in, your power cord and your warranty card, and then some hardware that can be used to either attach the legs to the bottom of the unit or attach the plate on the back so that it can be used with one of those swing out arms. Now let's take a look at the back side so we can see the connections that are available and also see how we can mount this to our arm. Alright, here we can see the connections on the back of the television. This is going to be important depending on all of the connections that you need to be able to make to your other components that you have available to you. As I mentioned, we have cable connection. So this is the traditional cable antenna coax connection. This one also has an HDMI port, and that's going to be most of your modern electronic components are going to use that. So depending on how many things you want to plug in, how many HDMI ports you have will become very important. This particular model has one that comes in from the rear and also one that can come in from the side. Some of your older components that are predate HDMI may have component video. So we have component video connections here. There's also a place to put in a USB drive so that you can use your Amazon Fire or any other device that you may want to plug in there. It also has audio output channels, both optical and just your traditional RCA type jacks. This is going to be important for us because we're going to attach a sound bar to this television. The speakers that come with these flat panel televisions generally are not very good. They're typically very small and don't have much of a bass response. So we'll be adding a sound bar to give us a richer, more broad sound. More about that in our next video. Also some controls on the back side, volume up and down, channel up and down, and input selection. This is very important if you happen to misplace your remote. You'll still at least be able to turn the television on and off, choose your inputs, and change the volume. And then our final consideration was, how are we going to mount this thing? So as I had mentioned, in our case, we're going to use one of those articulating arms so we can move the television around a little bit. So really all of your modern flat panel televisions are going to come with hardware that allows you to mount up with one of these articulating arms. All you really need to know is what is the spacing of the screws on the back, just to make sure that those line up or compatible with the hardware that you're going to purchase. So it'll tell you right on your television set in the manual what the spacing is, and it's usually expressed in millimeters. So this particular television, it's a 400 millimeter spacing, so it's just the distance between each of these screws is 400 millimeters. You'll want to make sure that the bracket, the articulating arm that you purchase, if you're going to wall mount, has that 400 millimeter option. Most of them are adjustable and can do a wide range of configurations, but it is just something you want to be aware of. In general, the larger the television or the heavier the television, the further apart the spacing is going to be, and the larger bracket that you're going to need in order to be able to mount up with it. So there you have it. Those are some of the things we considered when we were trying to decide on a television. Recommendation: get as large a television as space and budget will permit, but be aware that you have to fit it into a space and it may get in the way of other things. So it's just a matter of coming up with the right size for you. So there you have it. Those are the considerations we had when we were shopping for televisions. Just to summarize, we got this larger one that would fit in our space, best quality that made sense, that kind of fit our budget. Looked at the right mounting options as well as the ability to attach the additional electronics that we need to attach. If you follow those basic considerations, I'm certain you can find one that is going to service you well in your application. Next time, we'll talk about that sound bar and how we can really enhance our watching experience by getting the best sound possible out of our system. Until then, we'll see you on the road.